GRYSKLL.
What can I do to make the community better if I see narcissism, or how can I just be a positive force with this kind of issue?
Yeah.
It's like for the regular people, it's the regular people, everyday people.
Yeah, how can you make the community better? I guess just raising awareness on the subject and just educating people that may have had an experience with a narcissist or may not understand it, just giving them the tools and the knowledge and the wisdom so that way they can prepare, or they could be knowledgeable about dating a narcissist or having a friend or a family member that might be a narcissist, and how they can respond to it, so that way, you know, they can protect themselves and they can protect their children.
It reminds me of, I think we were having a conversation before in previous meeting about like restorative practices, restorative justice. It would be very interesting to see how that might intersect with that idea to make things better without calling people out and, you know, ostracizing people.
Yeah, because even like on my YouTube channel, like I don't talk about like the people that were narcissists in my life. I don't even mention their names or anything. So that's why, like, when you ask me that question, I'm like, I don't really want to say it because I don't know them personally.
I think that's so great. That's great. Yes.
Yeah.
You did the right thing. You passed the test.
I know, right?
Nobody wanted to mention anything I ever heard.
And we don't have to do another apology show. See?
My thing is, like, I wouldn't want nobody to do that to me. Like, if they didn't know me,
right.
like, you know, so I'm not going to do that to anybody else.
Me being the curious one that I am, I have another question. Is it possible, or I guess in as far as you know, are there cases where two narcissists are together, and how does that play out? What's the possibility of two narcissists like in a relationship? Like, is that a possibility? How does that work out? Like, does somebody die? Like, there can only be one type situation, or like?
Yes, no, that is a good question. That's actually pretty common. So yeah, you can have it to where two narcissists are in a relationship, and it's pretty chaotic. It's a lot of drama. It's a lot of chaos and mayhem and
volatile.
Yeah, so there is that possibility of having two narcissists, but the most common relationship is a narcissist with an empathic person. That's the more likely common, where it's like one person is the abuser and then the other person is like the caregiver, or they're being manipulated, controlled.
I'm pretty sure I was raised by one. Well, partially raised. He was only around for a few years, but
a lot of people can have narcissistic tendencies or personality traits. Is that true? I'm guessing, but is that true?
Yeah, I was about to ask, like, is there like a number? You got 6 out of these 10, you, my friend, are in trouble.
Yeah, no, like there is a possibility for people to have, you know, narcissistic tendencies, and it, you know, the way the world is and social media, you know, we all want attention, we all want to be accepted, we all want to be liked and loved. But the difference is how often a person is behaving in a narcissistic way, how frequent it is, and how long. Meaning, like, is this their personality? Is this like on an everyday basis, or is this just like every once in a blue moon from time to time? Like, somebody may make a smart comment, or they may try to put others down to bring themselves up, you know, but then they may be like, you know what, I'm sorry, I apologize, I was wrong, you know, so they would take accountability for their actions, you know, so that means that they're not a narcissist, but they may have the tendencies. And kind of going back to what Q mentioned as far as being raised by a narcissist, though the people that have parents that are narcissists, there may not be a full-blown narcissist, but they may have certain tendencies that they pick up from their parents. And I feel like, you know, that individual person, they just need to be mindful of that, to make sure that they're not following in the footsteps of their narcissistic parent.
And are there recommended steps for somebody like that? I mean, is there always a recommendation of therapy, or are there some other things that somebody that's going through something like that can?
It's good for a person to seek therapy if they have dealt with a narcissist in their life or dealt with narcissistic abuse. If it's a therapist, a counselor, or a coach like myself that has experience in narcissistic abuse, a person that understands trauma healing, trauma therapy, CPTSD, and inner childhood traumas, just understanding the depth of the abuse, the trauma abuse. So.
Okay. Mid-school asked a question about CPCSD. Can you explain what that is to us, please?
Yes. Okay. Do you want me to answer both of those, or because I see do narcissists exist in intimate?
Yes, please.
Okay, yes. So narcissists, they can exist in intimate relationships. They can come in family relationships, friends, co-workers, boss. Anybody can be a narcissist, And CPTSD is basically the extended version of PTSD, which is complex post-traumatic stress disorder, which is basically, an event that you experience in your life where you cannot forget about it, where you've been traumatized and it's really, really hard for you to overcome it, to heal from it, and to move on from it, So if it's complex, then you're constantly dealing with trauma. You're constantly being misused and mistreated, and it's affecting you in all ways, like your mental, your emotional, your psychological health, and a lot of us victims and survivors, we do experience complex post-traumatic stress disorder, because especially if it's a parent, because you're with them all the time. So you're gonna keep being abused. You're gonna keep being traumatized over and over and over again until you decide, like, I gotta have limit contact, or eventually it's gonna come to having no contact.
I saw a whole thread of people saying, talking about how they had to go no contact with somebody. I'd never heard that phrase or that term before, but it's something I've had to do myself, so I'm familiar with it. I just had to do it by myself and didn't have any guidance. So having somebody that can give some tips and guidance, kind of coach you through that, I can see how valuable that can be.
Yeah, because I remember when I first started out on my journey back in 2014, when I went no contact with the male narc, and then my aunt narcissist, I was by myself. Like, I literally had nobody. Like, only thing that I had, like I said earlier, is my creator, my God. And then I started doing some research. And then, eventually I did talk to someone. She was like a counselor in training, but she didn't really understand narcissistic abuse. And so I think that, really talking to somebody that has actually experienced what you experience is super helpful, especially like when you reach out to someone for support, because they can relate to you, they can validate your experience, and they can help you to cope and to eventually heal.
I think that's a great idea with therapists in general. I hadn't thought about that, but having somebody that's actually experienced something similar, I think that's a great idea, a great tip if you can use that as part of your screening process. And how do you handle it when a narcissistic person, a person with narcissistic personality disorder, walks back into your life? I heard you mention that they try to come back sometimes.
Yeah, you have to remember what you're dealing with. You have to realize that this is a personality disorder. So people, their personality is kind of what makes them who they are, so they're not going to change. You have to remember that in your mind and understand, and realize that there's nothing you can do or say or behave in a certain way to change this individual. And them coming back doesn't mean that they've changed or that they realize the error in their ways, because they may try to trick us, because they know that we love them, we may miss them, and we wanted the best for them. And so sometimes they will use that against us to try to trick us and make us feel like, oh yeah, I've changed, I'm sorry, I apologize. And they may change for a couple days, a few months, but then it's gonna go right back to the same way. The abuse is gonna be worse. The manipulation is gonna be worse. The devaluation stage is gonna be worse. And the cycle is gonna continue until we put that no contact into place and it's permanent, so that way they can't come back in and, continue that abuse.